What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the team builder for the GBA Semifinals, where your Kansas City Giraffe Chiefs are taking on Emvee and the San Diego Chimchargers in our second matchup of the season. I'm sure you guys are really looking forward to this match, as I definitely am as well. Last time around, we did pretty well in the match. We ended up winning that match 4-0. On the back of an Assault Vest Gardevoir that put in so much work against his team, and I believe my Seismitoad gave him a pretty hard time as well. So that combination was really what was able to propel me to that win in the previous matchup. The Sub-Seed Celesteela that I brought last time around was really effective too, but you know, we're going to have to change this up a little bit for this matchup, as I know for a fact that Emvee will not be willing to lose to an Assault Vest Gardevoir 2 straight games. So I really can't bring that set, despite the fact that I think it matches up so well against stuff like that Alolan Raichu that I'm otherwise pretty weak to. But just to very briefly go over his team, as he has made a couple small changes compared to our last matchup. He is rocking the Alolan Raichu, the Tapu Koko, the Mega Pinsir, the Silvally, which is a new addition this time around, the Kyurem, Gligar, Magmortar, which replaces the Incineroar. I believe the Silvally replaced his Girder, or I guess vice versa in terms of the tiers. But regardless, then he also has the Hoopa Unbound, the Empoleon, the Amoonguss, and the Slowbro, with the Z Captains being the Tapu Koko and the Magmortar. So his team is very, very threatening. And if I think back to, you know, his commentary in our first matchup, he kind of made it sound like this matchup was like really hard for him. And like, let me be clear, this matchup's really hard for me as well. I think this is the definition of an even matchup, because I have a lot of threats to his team that he'll struggle to switch into, but he does have counterplay for it. He has checks to every single member of my team. He has counters to most members of my team as well. And on the same hand, the same applies to a lot of his threats too. So like Hoopa Unbound, I don't really switch into Hoopa. I have stuff like Hydreigon that in theory can switch into Hoopa if he doesn't click like a fighting move, or I guess an ice move or a bug move or something. I think it gets Signal Beam. And he has stuff like the Mega Pinsir as well that I don't switch into particularly well. Granted, Celesteela does switch in, but Celesteela is pressured by a lot of members of his team, so it's not like that's like a guaranteed counter by any means. Plus, Celesteela doesn't even one-shot the Mega Pinsir in most cases, so not the optimal counter necessarily, but it is one of the better initial switch-ins at the very least. Aerodactyl also can do that, but again, both of those mons can be worn down pretty easily. Tapu Koko is the big one, though, and Alolan Raichu. That Electric Core, like I mentioned the first time around, is so threatening against my team. I just don't have... I have good responses to electric types, I really do, but the Alolan Raichu especially, combination of electric and psychic stab is so good against my team. On its own, it's between its stabs and its potential coverage, it can hit my entire team freaking hard, and that's why I brought that Assault Vest Gardevoir last time around. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to try to find a different way to combat the potential Alolan Raichu bring, besides the Assault Vest Gardevoir idea, because I really don't think that is optimal in this matchup. When he can expect it, he can expect that exact set to come, he can have great counterplay to it. I'm expecting something along the lines of maybe physical Tapu Koko, maybe Hoopa coming, being able to at least speed tie max speed Gardevoir and put a lot of pressure on me if he's a physical or like a mixed set Mega Pinsir. He can bring a lot of physical attackers, even Kyurem. He can bring Kyurem with Iron Head, and the combination of just spamming Ice Beam and Iron Head, maybe a Life Orb Kyurem, would be really annoying for my team to deal with as well. So there's a lot of pretty easy counterplay to the Assault Vest Gardevoir idea, so I have to have other ways to deal with the Alolan Raichu specifically. And considering, like, looking across my roster, I really don't have the best ways to do that, but I have a couple ideas that I'll talk about here as we move forward with this team builder. But I'm really kind of concerned about the Tapu Koko Alolan Raichu once again, just like I was last time around, because they are so difficult for my draft to counter. I can check them, sure, but countering them is a different story. That is very difficult, especially Tapu Koko when it has access to U-turn. I can't even just switch in like my Seismitoad freely or whatever. And Tapu Koko can easily run something like Nature's Madness, Z Nature's Madness, Guardian of Alola, and just blow back my Seismitoad as well as that into a Grass Knot would knock me out even through a Rindo Berry. It could also be Bloom Doom if you wanted to. With a Z Tapu Koko, like there's no real counters to that, unfortunately. It's why it's one of the best mons in the format though. So all I'm trying to say is this matchup is super volatile in both directions. I have a lot of threats, he has a lot of threats, and that makes this matchup all the more exciting. But let's go ahead and jump into the team that I'm going to bring for this week of the playoffs, the semifinals against Emvee. So we're kicking this off with my Gardevoir once again. There was no way I wasn't going to bring Gardevoir in this matchup, but I really wanted to mix it up. And I felt that the best way to mix it up, to maybe kind of throw him for a loop, was to run a different item on Gardevoir, in this case a Choice Scarf. I think Choice Scarf Gardevoir has a strong potential to win this game. He has very limited Fairy Resist. His Fairy Resist are Amoonguss, Empoleon, and Magmortar. Potentially Sovali if he happens to bring the proper Sovali form, but those are pretty limited resists to Gardevoir. And switching an Amoonguss on a Gardevoir is really dangerous, just in its own right, and that was really evidenced in our previous matchup. He has tried to switch an Amoonguss into Gardevoir's Psychic twice, and so that didn't work out particularly well for him. And I don't really expect him to want to make that type of switch again, since I have been shown as more than capable of predicting that type of switching in our previous matchup. So I wanted to go with a mon that can really abuse the fact that he has limited Fairy Resists, and that's what Choice Scarf Gardevoir really does here. Combination Shadow Ball, Psy Shock, Moonblast, and Thunderbolt is able to hit his entire team at least neutrally. Really just the combination Psy Shock, Moonblast, and Thunderbolt does that. Shadow Ball is nice because with the Choice Scarf, if he does bring the Alolan Raichu, while I don't have as strong of a defensive response to it on this particular team, I can check it offensively now because I am able to outspeed with the Choice Scarf, as I will trace the Surge Surfer and outspeed him then on the turn where I try to check him. Shadow Ball just does a little more damage than Moonblast, and considering I am not running max special attack investment on this Gardevoir, I opted to have that coverage option to have that little boost in power just in case I need it. Now let's talk a little bit about the investment on this set, as it's pretty wild here. So the speed allows me to outpace a Tapu Koko. I felt like that was a good benchmark to hit, as I think he could very well run max speed Tapu Koko against me, as Tapu Koko does speed tie my Aerodactyl, so he very well might run max speed on that. Being able to outpace that is good. So that's the idea behind the speed. Now the HP and the defense investment allows me to survive a +2 Adamant, I think it might be Jolly, Quick Attack from the Mega Pinsir after Stealth Rock, as I plan to preserve this until the late game. There is the potential that Emvee is trying to win this game with a +2 Mega Pinsir, so if I have that defense investment to prevent him from being able to actually knock out my Gardevoir at +2, that could be incredibly clutch. As the end game that I'm really envisioning here in this matchup is him having Tapu Koko Mega Pinsir in the end, and me having this Gardevoir after being able to weaken down and eliminate his Fairy Resists. So that's the end game I'm expecting to happen here, and this Gardevoir is able to seal the deal in that particular scenario. Nothing else to really talk about in terms of the EV spread and moveset, just this is my primary win condition in this game, and I need to build a team that allows me to get rid of those defensive responses to Moonblast or even Psyshock spam. Either way is a pretty viable way to try to win this game in the end, depending on the team composition that he brings. But we need to be able to get rid of those resists. So next up is going to be my Breloom, coming in with the natural gift Pomeg Berry. Now this is natural gift ice, base 90 power instead of the base 100 power that would come from a Ganlon Berry. The idea here is that the Pomeg Berry cannot be consumed when I am at low health, and I plan on playing this Breloom very riskily if he decides to bring his Amoonguss. My idea here, this is the idea that I want to try to execute here in this matchup, because I really respect Emvee as a battler, and I think that he is the kind of person to scout for natural gift Breloom if I were to reveal Swords Dance. So if he brings Amoonguss, my idea is to Swords Dance on the Amoonguss switch in, and then immediately click Bullet Seed instead of natural gift, expecting him to try to get me to burn my my berry by natural gifting him as he tries to switch into something like Empoleon, or maybe like Slowbro if he's feeling really bold. I'm not really sure. He'll probably try to switch into something else. Maybe even, no, he wouldn't go Pinsir. I don't know. I think he would just try to like go into one of his waters to chew up the potential flying or ice hit or even fire hit coming from a natural gift Braylum. So I really think that strategy, being able to bullet seed whatever his scout fodder is, could be really effective and put me in a really good position in the early game. If he brings that regenerator core, this is what I'm going to try to break him with early in the game. And I'm actually really confident that Emvee would make the play of scouting for the natural gift and potentially get kind of flustered if I get that prediction correct. He might go back into his Amoonguss after that, and then maybe I could just pop him with the +2 90 base power ice move and just knock out the Amoonguss, as well as with the brave nature, the attack boosting nature in 20 EVs in attack. It allows me to almost guaranteed knock out Amoonguss after rocks, even if he is full Fizz Def, and I don't expect him to be fully Fizz Def if he brings Amoonguss. I think he's going to be some kind of mixed spread like he was last time around, so it should be able to knock him out. So ideally, this will be able to do a lot of damage to him. Now I am running the I'm heavily investing in bulk on this Braylum to allow me to take a couple different hits. One being a max special attack Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko after 2 rounds of Stealth Rock damage. That allows this Braylum to be a potential, basically it allows me to get a potential kill in the late game, as I don't really expect him to bring Brave Bird on the Tapu Koko. That would be the only move, or even like Z Dazzling Gleam, that he'd be able to knock me out in one shot with. And I just don't really think he's going to do that, because I kind of made it clear in my previous team builder that I wasn't really feeling Mega Venusaur in this matchup, where he can easily, or at least as a Tapu Koko switch in, because he could easily just Volt Switch or U-turn on that Mega Venusaur switch in and go straight into Mega Pinsir, go straight into Hoopa, and just give me a really hard time. I wasn't really about that life, and quite honestly, I'm still not. As you can see, there's no Mega Venusaur on this team, so I don't really expect him to bring Brave Bird necessarily, but I mean, that's something I scout for regardless, but even so, I don't think he'll have it, and in the case where he doesn't have it, this is able to then soft check the Tapu Koko. Potentially, I could even lure the Tapu Koko in the late game if he thinks there's no way I'm outside of range of a Dazzling Gleam. This would be able to chew that hit after 2 rounds of Stealth Rock damage. This also allows me to take a hit from the Amoonguss if for some reason he actually decides to not scout for the natural gift from a +2 Braylum. That would allow me to take the incoming Sledge Bomb, assuming he is the same amount of special attack investment or lower as he was in our first matchup. And it gives me a second opportunity to either bluff him or go straight for the natural gift. So it gives me 2 opportunities against the Amoonguss. It gives me a good opportunity to get maybe a cheeky kill at the end against the Tapu Koko, or at least a lot of damage on it, as I really only need to weaken the Tapu Koko into range of my Gardevoir in the late game, because that's like 100% what I'm going to try to win with. Under no circumstances am I risking my Gardevoir at any point in the game. I'm going for the win with my Gardevoir if at all possible. So I really just need that chip damage on the Tapu Koko, and this is able to pull that off for me. Mach Punch is also nice to get a little bit of extra chip damage off on the Hoopa Unbound, which I might need, or even the Magmortar, both mons that I would like to weaken down. Magmortar in the case of my potential Moonblast sweep with my Gardevoir, and the Hoopa just because I want to get that a little bit weakened further, a little bit weakened just so that my Hydreigon can check it a little bit better as well. So I think that's all I wanted to say on that. I'm also running Brave Nature, 18 IVs in speed, kind of weird, basically just to make sure I outspeed a Hoopa Unbound under Trick Room, just in case he wants to try to bring Trick Room Hoopa in back-to-back weeks. That's what he kind of tossed Geo with in round 1 of the playoffs, so I wanted to make sure I had a good offensive check to that as well. Now next up is my Hydreigon. This is another check to Hoopa. In a sense, it doesn't one-shot Hoopa, unfortunately. I opted for Defog instead of U-turn. I really was messing between, or kind of playing between like 4 different moves. I was looking at Defog, I was looking at U-turn, I was looking at Roost and Sub, all moves that had a lot of, even Taunt. I was looking at a lot of moves throughout the course of this team build, and ended up settling on Defog really at the very last minute. Because I see a lot of scenarios where he tries to lead Empoleon, as I plan to lead Seismitoad. I'll talk about that in just a second. And I see him being able to get up Stealth Rocks very early in this game, before I'm able to get mine up. As my rocker, being the Aerodactyl, which I'll show in a second, is more meant to be like a mid-game rocker, basically switching him whenever I have a safe opportunity to do so. And that means that he's likely to get up Stealth Rocks early in the game. And if he brings something like a Scarfed Kyurem, which is something I'm kind of fearing with this particular team that I'm bringing this week, I think Scarfed Kyurem is a very large threat. I'm not bringing any of my Ice Resists. I'm not bringing anything that even outspeeds it. The only thing that like kind of outspeeds is my Braylon's Mach Punch, and that's not even fully invested. So I'm a little bit scared of Kyurem, and being able to keep Stealth Rock off the field really helps some of my defensive mons in terms of taking a hit from the Kyurem if needed. So I felt like Defog was the most valuable option to have, but there's plenty of arguments that could be made for any of those other moves that I listed on this Hydreigon. But in terms of the coverage, I wanted this to be a secondary Regenerator Core Breaker. Breloom is one of those Regenerator Core Breakers. If he brings the Slowbro Amoonguss again, I have Bullet Seed, I have Natural Gift Ice on the Breloom. In this case, I have the Flamethrower, I have the Dark Pulse, both moves that are able to hit his Regenerator Core very strongly. Even the Empoleon doesn't really switch in super well since Dark Pulse does a lot of damage to that, and getting that chip damage off on the Empoleon is exactly what I need for my Gardevoir to be able to win this in the late game. Now I also have Draco Meteor to hit really a lot of his team hard. This has speed for Kyurem just in case he wants to be like a sub-roost variant. I think that's pretty good against that more defensive build that I might bring. So Draco Meteor is really nice for that. Also a hard way to hit the Hoopa. Again, U-turn could have gone in that slot, but I really felt like these three moves were my best call. Also thought about the potential for like Earth Power on this since he has a lot of ground weaknesses on his team, but I felt Flamethrower was a better coverage move, being able to specifically hit the Amoonguss for super effective damage in a tight situation. Only other things to mention, Chople Berry on this allows me to be a pseudo check to a few things. In addition to this 60 EVs in HP, 4 EVs in defense, that allows me to check a Mega Pinsir, Jolly Mega Pinsir, after Stealth Rock damage. There's no one move he can go for that knocks me out unless he is packing the Double Edge, which I do not expect against my team. Close Combat goes through the Chople Berry, return I'm able to guaranteed live, and if he is an Adamant Mega Pinsir, I guaranteed outspeed that, since that does not outpace a Hydreigon that is timid. This also allows me to check a Alolan Raichu, as the best coverage Alolan Raichu can have for this is the Focus Blast. I can chew that up pretty well, so it gives me a secondary response to Alolan Raichu, and it also gives me a check of sorts to the Hoopa Unbound. I realize Hoopa gets coverage for Hydreigon besides just fighting attacks, but it is quite possible that he tries to bring a fighting attack as that coverage option. If he is physical specifically, as I also have the Alolan Persian I could bring potentially in this matchup, which I did strongly consider here for this game. So I think fighting coverage is likely, but if he is special, he'll probably run Signal Beam instead, so it might not be too useful in that case, but Hoopa's always one of those mons you just have to scout out anyways and see what he actually is packing. So the next up is the Seismitoad. This is an Assault Vest variant with a pretty important EV spread as well. Basically, the EV spread is meant to allow me to take a collective hits from a Grass Knot and Empoleon, which I think will come. I don't think he could be offensively invested. I don't think he will be, but he could be. And if he is not offensively invested, I have a very high chance, it's not 100%, but it's a very high chance to avoid the 2-hit KO from his Grass Knots. And because of these 28 EVs in attack, if he is a non-defensively invested Empoleon, still max HP, I'm able to have a very good chance as well of 2-hit KOing the Empoleon through the Shoka Berry. So I think that could be really valuable, again, especially because I'm trying to weaken down his fairy resistance for the Gardevoir. I have Allure for the Amoonguss being one of his fairy resistant, my Breloom. I have several ways to weaken down the Empoleon so far on this team, as you've already seen. This being one of my primary ways of doing that. Because I am Assault Vested with a lot of Spadef investment, I can also take hits from the Tapu Koko very well. I can take hits from the Kyurem as well, two pretty big threats to my team, as I've already mentioned, and be able to hit those with the Earthquake in the case of Tapu Koko, and I guess Alolan Raichu as well, and then the Low Kick, which does a lot of damage to Kyurem, which is apparently very heavy, so that's pretty good. Knockoff is to help get rid of potential Assault Vests, if he decides to bring like an Assault Vest Amoonguss again. I would definitely want to get rid of that so that my Hydreigon can break it down a little bit more easily. Knockoff is also nice for his Gligar if he decides to bring that, as soon as I get rid of the Violite, then it's no longer a threat to my team at all, as my special attackers then could break through it very easily. Obviously, Breloom would do a lot more damage with my offensive moves as well. So this is a very important mon in this matchup for sure, and one that I really want to preserve the health on if at all possible, as it's able to really single-handedly check a large portion of his team. Defense investment, actually, I don't think I ever mentioned, the defense investment allows me to take a variety of of hits from Mega Pinsir, from Hoopa, just really any physical attacker, I believe on his entire team, I can take any one hit from, even after Stealth Rock, so that's also pretty nice as well. Now next up is the Celesteela. This set is designed to do two jobs. One is to check the Mega Pinsir. I'm able to take a +2 adamant close combat after rocks with this set if needed, and be able to retaliate with a very strong Air Slash. No investment is needed on Air Slash to do a lot of damage to the Mega Pinsir. If he is at 50%, it's a guaranteed knockout. If he is at 75%, I don't believe it knocks him out, so I need a little bit of prior chip damage, but I think there are a variety of ways that I can get that chip damage off on the Mega Pinsir, especially if he opts to not bring the Amoonguss, as that would probably be a way for my Breloom to get chip damage off on the incoming Mega Pinsir, putting it in range of Air Slash, and then we are good to go. So that's really helpful. This is also, without all that special defense investment, another way to help me deal with that Scarf Kyurem that I really think is coming. I think it should come, if I'm being honest. I don't know if it will come, but I think it should come, just because my team last time around didn't have a single ice resist. My best mons against this team do not resist ice outside of Arcanine, and I don't know, I didn't bring Arcanine last time around. It's okay in the matchup. I strongly considered it. I just felt like I would struggle so much to keep Stealth Rock off the field that it wasn't worth actually bringing Arcanine as a switch into things on his team. As I felt like after trying to switch in twice, the best thing I can do really is Morning Sun, right? So I switch in Arcanine on Kyurem to take an Ice Beam, and take Stealth Rock damage in the process. I Morning Sun as he gets to go hard into something that threatens me, like the Tapu Koko, like an Electrium Tapu Koko. I could totally see him bringing Gigavolt Havoc, specifically to punish me for going into my Arcanine. He could bring a Guardian of Alola on the Tapu Koko to punish me for going into Arcanine. He could catch my Toad, get rid of my Toad, and then I literally have no switch-ins for Thunderbolt. So, like, I just don't like the defensive approach very much against this team, at least against his mons that can... at least specifically against, well, I just in general, I just don't like defense too much against this team. So if I were to bring Arcanine, I guess I would bring more of an offensive set, and I felt like that really wasn't as good as these other mons that I was bringing here. So Air Slash and Flash Cannon hits his entire team, at least neutrally, outside of the Raichu and the Empoleon. So both of those don't particularly appreciate being Leech Seeded. Raichu doesn't care too much necessarily, but what I would be able to do is Leech Seed up and then Protect on the Raichu, and those 2 rounds of Leech Seed plus Stealth Rock damage will put it into range of my Gardevoir's Moonblast, which is ultimately the goal. So I'd be okay with that particular exchange, and in the case of Empoleon, every bit of chip damage is really nice against it. So yeah, even just a couple rounds of Leech Seed against the Empoleon, maybe in conjunction with an Earthquake from my Toad, or like a Dark Pulse from a Hydreigon. Any of those scenarios would be really good for my Gardevoir in the late game. So now finally we have my Aerodactyl, which is my Stealth Rocker this week. It has Taunt as well to prevent him from defogging my Stealth Rocks away if needed. It's also nice to prevent him from setting up, maybe in a situation where I don't want to risk a Rock Slide miss potentially against a Mega Pinsir. In a really urgent situation, I can taunt to prevent the potential Swords Dance, and then I can maybe win more easily with my Gardevoir in the late game, potentially, just as something to consider there. But taunt is mostly there to prevent him from defogging away my hazards, potentially to prevent him from setting his own hazards in the case of Empoleon or Gligar, which are both very possible switch-ins to the Aerodactyl. And if he does bring the Gligar, if I taunt that, I'm pretty sure it won't be able to touch me. So that's another thing to think about. I think if he brings Gligar, it's going to be... I think he might bring Knockoff or Selly. I think he'll bring Roost, Taunt. I think he'll bring Roost, Taunt, Rocks, or Defog, and then a filler move. It's very possible that that filler move is just going to be U-turn, so the Gligar's not fodder for anything. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen, but I think Knockoff is also a possibility. And even so, being able to taunt that thing and whittle it down with Rock Slides is nice for my offensive options in the late game as well. Like the Gardevoir and the Hydreigons especially love seeing Gligar whittled, and this is a good way of doing that as well. Now I'm running the Iapop Berry with basically max HP, 228 HP, 28 defense, and that allows me to take hits from Mega Pinsir once again. I think Mega Pinsir is his most likely win condition against my team. I really do. Mega Pinsir, maybe on paper, doesn't look like it's that great against my team, but the rest of his draft is so good at whittling down the defensive members of my draft that would be able to deal with Mega Pinsir, and that's why I think Mega Pinsir is his best win condition against me. This is a great way to this type of set is a great way to help me check Mega Pinsir, being able to take an adamant close combat after Stealth Rock and trigger my Eye of Papa Berry, get back up to a lot of health, and still be able to stay outside of range of a quick attack even after another round of Stealth Rock damage. That's really important, I feel, in this matchup, and he really struggles to switch into the combination Rock Slide Earthquake anyway, so I really didn't think I needed to add too much attack investment necessarily, especially because I'm more riding on the back of my Gardevoir, Breloom, and Hydreigon to break through his team for this particular game. But rocks are really important. I need rocks in the field to be able to whittle stuff down into range of my Gardevoir. Again, Gardevoir is the plan to win this game, and if I can't win with Gardevoir, I gotta try to win with Hydreigon, or maybe even this Aerodactyl. This thing being able to outspeed most of Emvee's team is really helpful. The only things that really outspeed this would be the Alolan Raichu under Terrain, or his own choice Scarfers. Otherwise, this outspeeds absolutely everything he could bring, and considering he doesn't switch into Rock Slide or Earthquake, or at least the best mons he could bring, I think his best offensive threats against my team don't switch in well to Edgequake. I think this is just really effective against him for sure. Now, we are trying to speed tie the Tapu Koko this week, and once again, just like last time around, I am not afraid to risk that speed tie at all, and I think that Emvee would be afraid to risk it. So we'll see how that comes into play. I think that he values Tapu Koko a lot more than I value Aerodactyl, so I'm willing to make that risk, and we'll see if it's able to come through here. So I'm really excited for this matchup. I hope you guys are as well. This is the GBA Semifinals, and the winner of this matchup will go on to face the winner of Chimpact versus Gator in the championship of Season 8 of the GBAs. So hope you guys are looking forward to the match. It'll be coming out tomorrow. Don't know what time yet, just stay tuned to the sub box of TTM, and I'm sure you'll get notified of it in the GBA fan server and all over the place, as this is, you know, a matchup I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to. So let's see if we can go out and beat Emvee for a second time this season. That would be pretty awesome, and I guess I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.